What's a disturbing thing you spotted in a friend's partner that made you realize there was something off about them? I had a friend who dated an FC Dallas soccer player. Naturally, I was already skeptical. He was a foreign professional athlete. He claimed to be from Uruguay and said the girl in his profile picture was an ex he was still very good friends with. Because of that, he refused to change the photo. He would get mad if she even asked and acted like she was trying to control him. After months of watching this train wreck, his manager came into town to stay with him. During this time, 4 weeks, he wouldn't see her and said it was rude to have people over while he had company. The only time he saw her during that period was at a hotel he booked for them. Obvious, right? Wrong. She was skeptical, but not fully convinced. One night, after helping me pack, we went to dinner with my mom and told her the story. Since bro was out of town for a game and we happened to be very close to his apartment, I decided we should squash this and find out who was really staying there. My mother agreed to knock on the door to see who answered. She knocks. It's the girl from the profile picture. Bro had his real girlfriend staying with him for about 2 months, claiming it was his manager. There were plenty of other clear telltale signs that he was a piece of crap, but she really needed that slap in the face kind of evidence. Story 2. The first thing that stood out was that she's about 7 years younger than him, which I thought was a little odd. But we were all in our mid-20s, so not totally strange. When he finally brought her to my BBQ, I instantly disliked her. She just sat there and stared, didn't engage with anyone, didn't make small talk with the other guests. Nothing. Just stone-cold silence. I figured maybe she was shy, which I could understand. But all she did was whisper to my buddy when he was around. When she did speak, it was little complaints like, "There's a lot of bugs today," or "It's really hot," or "The sun's in my eyes." Nothing particularly off-putting on its own, but since that was literally all she said the entire time, I found it kind of strange. It turns out my SO overheard her conversations with my friend, and she was constantly complaining about me, complaining about how I hosted the BBQ, complaining about my dog, complaining about how I asked my friend to lend a hand when I needed help with something. Since that day, I've literally never heard her say a word that wasn't a direct complaint or a lead into one about something trivial. Once, she even accused me of stacking the deck in Cards Against Humanity. "I bet you took all the good cards and put them in your pile before the game." Then she walked across the room, switched the stacks herself, and complained that she still got shitty cards. I honestly don't understand how anyone can go through life never being pleased with anything. My SO has the right mindset and just ignores her. Couldn't care less whether she's happy or not, but to me it's like nails on a chalkboard. It really only bothers me and one other person in our friend group. Most people dislike her for other reasons, like the fact that she's making my friend miserable. It's almost worse than a major flaw because it's so specific to my experience that I can't really vent about it to anyone. They just say, "What do you care if she's happy? Just ignore her." So I sit there and listen to her bish about everything for hours on end, like some little fun vacuum. "This pasta is too watery. Why is this music so loud? Can't we go to a better bar?" I hate my job. That waiter was so rude. Just a constant stream of little complaints. It's maddening. Story 3. The first time I met her girlfriend at our place, she barely even acknowledged our existence. I got an off vibe from the start. Later, she complained because my friend was at our place when we had planned to make a big dinner for a few of us. This woman stopped by, and since we're decent people, we asked if she was hungry. Without saying yes or anything at all, she just dug into the food and shoved half of what we'd been cooking all afternoon down her throat. The second she finished, she got up, grabbed my friend by the arm, right in the middle of a conversation, and demanded that she wanted to leave. So they had to go now. At that point, I fully hated this inconsiderate piece of crap. I brought these things up a few times, saying I didn't think she treated her very well, but my friend always made excuses. She was just in a rush, or she had a lot on her mind that day. What really made me flip was when her childhood friend was visiting, and this woman literally told her girlfriend, my friend, who she supposedly loved very much, that she didn't want to waste her time meeting her friends because she didn't care about that. Seriously, what the heck? I went on a full rant to my friend about how I couldn't stand her girlfriend, how she was treating her like crap, and how she was manipulating her. I made it clear I had absolutely no interest in hanging out if that woman was going to be around. Sadly, our friendship slowly started to fade after that. This girl used to be such a happy, loving, bubbly, and inspiring person in every aspect. The few times I saw her after that, she just became less and less bearable to be around. I frigging hate her girlfriend, and I'm already pissed just writing this. It sounds like it went from 0 to 100 real fast, but I left out a lot of stuff. This all happened over the span of 1.5 years. Story 4. My friend had started seeing a girl a few months earlier. Once they began dating, I barely saw him. One weekend, I called to see if he wanted to come golfing with the guys. He seemed hesitant, but finally agreed, on the condition that we golfed first thing in the morning, right after sunrise. We get to the course, and he's ready to go. Riding in my cart, after a few holes, he starts telling me, 1. His girlfriend wants to be included in everything he does. She doesn't want him doing activities that don't involve her. 2. He hadn't told her he was going golfing because she would have forbidden it. 3. He had loaded his golf clubs into his car the night before and snuck out of their apartment at 5 a.m. while she was sleeping. 4. His plan was to rush back after we finished, get coffee and breakfast, and act like he had just gone for a morning walk to surprise her. Around the 4th hole, his cell phone started ringing. He saw her name on the caller ID but didn't answer. She called back half a dozen times until he finally turned off the phone. He looked nervous. As we drove up to the 10th hole, I heard him mutter, "Oh no," and then saw what he had noticed first. His girlfriend, standing behind the tee blocks, arms folded, scowling at us. We later figured out she must have gone through his emails to find out where he'd gone that morning. When we reached her in our cart, my friend put his head down, apologized to me, and said he had to go. He silently removed his clubs from the cart and followed her back to the parking lot. After that, we stopped inviting him out. They stayed together for another 10 years, and I never saw him without her being present. Eventually, she cheated on him with a coworker and left him. Story 5. He sized me up the second we met and tried to act cocky, then became completely indecisive and pissed off when I didn't react. It then took him 20 minutes to choose from a tiny menu. My friend is a tiny Asian woman. Her boyfriend was a shorter Irish-looking guy, and I'm a 6-foot Arab. We went to the same boxing gym and became good friends quickly. I was used to some of her partners getting jealous or thinking there was something between us. This guy, however, would have absolute fits of jealousy anytime she hung out with anyone else, then collapse in on himself once the fit passed. He never hit her, but he certainly knew how to play on her insecurities. They're both psychiatric therapists, and it seemed like he knew exactly how to hit someone's issues. But nothing was ever his fault, and he never stuck to his decisions. I warned her against him many times, but she's never been the best judge of partners. It all came to a head when they were on a trip to Europe and she started feeling very sick. It turned out she was in the first 2 months of a pregnancy that wasn't going well. His reaction was a mix of, "You dumb bish, how could you do this to me?" and "We're going to be together forever for our child." Thankfully, she got out of there, took the first plane back to the States, and had a medical abortion. Story 6. My whole family has been obsessed with Doctor Who since the 70s. It's almost like a religion to us. Everyone knows this. When my sister was about to get married, I asked her fiance if he was prepared to like Doctor Who since it was basically a requirement for joining the family. He responded, "I absolutely hate Doctor Who. You have to be an idiot to like that show." I replied playfully, you realize you just insulted everyone in this room? My sister, my husband, and our kids, my mom and dad." He then launched into a 30-minute lecture, explaining his opinions in full detail. "I'm fine if someone doesn't like the same shows I do, but maybe you can do it politely without calling people idiots." She still married him, but later discovered he had a violent criminal past. Years after their divorce, he's still violating the restraining order, sabotaging her business and relationships, and ignoring child support. Story 7. A close friend of mine kept asking my wife and me to double date with his girlfriend, so we decided to have them over for Chinese food and a game of Monopoly. I had an egg roll and some noodles on my plate when I stepped away to make a drink. When I came back, the girl had tossed my entire plate, including the untouched egg roll, into the trash without saying a word. She's 10 years older than us, divorced with a kid, so maybe she thought it was some kind of motherly duty, but it still left me pissed. She then proceeded to have no understanding of the Monopoly trade concept, consistently offering us get-out-of-jail-free cards for Boardwalk and Park Place. She claimed she hadn't played the game in years, but I'm not sure how that would affect basic valuation comprehension. They've been on and off for the last year, during which she's hooked up with multiple other guys. The egg roll incident tipped me off from the very beginning. Story 8. I already knew this girl was a piece of work, but this was the moment she lost any potential respect from me. One afternoon, I was casually hanging out in the living room with one of my longtime best friends and a few other people when his 3-month live-in girlfriend suddenly said, "If your friends don't leave right friggin' now, I'll burn this house to the ground." He tossed her a lighter and said something along the lines of, "Do what you need to do, but we're not going anywhere." she didn't burn the house down or even light anything on fire. When they eventually broke up, he was moving his things out with her grandmother present. She was sobbing, begging him to stay, and literally laid down on the floor and grabbed his leg, so he ended up dragging her around like something out of a cartoon. Story 9. When I met her for the first time, after the usual nice to meet you, she immediately tried to play matchmaker, wanting to hook me up with one of her friends who had been arrested multiple times. Then she tried to set me up with another friend who already had a boyfriend. I ended up becoming good friends with that girl though, and helped her stop being friends with my friend's girlfriend because she was constantly treating her like crap. Then came the ultimatums. She invited me and a few others over to her house to smoke and drink, and when I asked my friend if he wanted to join, she said right in front of me, "If you smoke, I'm breaking up with you." That was awkward as hell. She couldn't take a joke. At a Halloween party, she came up to me and claimed my friend had hit her. Turns out it didn't happen. She was making things up to come between us. It took a while, but I was finally able to convince him to break up with her after she had a huge meltdown, calling me a piece of crap, even though all I'd done was try to coexist. She sent angry texts to me about being friends with a girl she had tried to set me up with, and about not getting in the way of her already established relationship with her boyfriend. She called me a bad friend for not fully supporting their relationship. She was mentally and emotionally abusive to my friend, constantly putting down anything he wanted to do and making him feel like crap. She was just a huge jerk, and I thank God he got out of that relationship. I also once had her and her friend over at my house to hang out by the pool. She asked me for a glass of water, so I got it for her. When I came outside, I saw her going through my phone to check what me and my friend were talking about. She had no respect for anyone's privacy, and it really pissed me off. That's when I realized just how crazy she was. Story 10. In no particular order. She took advantage of him while he was drunk and encouraged him, unwillingly, to get her pregnant. This was when they were barely dating and at a time in my friend's life when he was far from ready to be a dad. She made him have a destination wedding where, from his side, only his parents were able to attend. It was basically 300 of her friends and family plus his parents. I was asked to be best man but didn't attend because it would have cost almost $8,000 for my family to go between flights, hotels, car rental, and other expenses. She once chased their postal carrier down the street. My friend didn't even know about this after a package she ordered via UPS wasn't delivered. One time, when we were visiting them, my friend and I went out to pick up food for dinner. She called him. He put her on speaker in the car, hysterically sobbing that she had to go to the bathroom, to the point that he had to yell at her to snap the hell out of it. She frequently hides in the bedroom sleeping all day when visiting his parents, who are some of the nicest people on earth. She's also done this when visiting our house. She makes him cut up her food at meals in the presence of others. My friend is an awesome, laid-back human, but he's a career pothead and just lets all this roll off his back. My friend, if you're reading this, I haven't had the balls to say it to you, but this is why we rarely talk anymore. I hope you and your son can get away from this psychopath before she damages him. Story 11. I've had a friend since kindergarten. We went to the same schools all the way through university. She started dating a guy in college who was a musician. There were a lot of things about him that annoyed me or rubbed me the wrong way, but nothing I felt was worth bringing up to her. For the sake of this story, I'll call him Anonymous Folk Musician, or AFM. One of his quirks, which she knew about but seemed fine with, was that his stage persona was that he was single and always looking for a bed in the audience to sleep in. I'd go to his shows with her, and he'd point out friends and family in the audience saying hi between songs, but never her. Not once. He proposed after they'd been dating for 8 years, and their wedding was set for a year later. During that year, AFM came to play in the small town where I was living at the time. My friend was coming into town with him, so I planned to go see his show with her. They were staying at a mutual friend's house. The morning of the show, I was talking about my day's plans with my housemates. When I mentioned going to AFM's show, one housemate said, "Wow, me too. How do you know AFM?" "He's engaged to my best friend," I replied. "He has a girlfriend?" my housemate exclaimed. "No, he has a fiance." "Wait, how do you know AFM?" "We met at Burning Man, and I really didn't get the impression he had a girlfriend." That sounded like the red flag I'd been waiting for. I just needed more. "What do you mean by that?" I asked. But the conversation had gone in the wrong order. He tried to backtrack and wouldn't give me anything I could use to warn her. We all awkwardly watched his show that night. 6 months later, as the wedding date approached, he broke up with her about 6 weeks before the wedding. I was really relieved. She's been happily married to a genuinely likable guy for several years now. I'm so glad she didn't marry her college sweetheart. I knew it was a bad match, but I never had the evidence I would have needed to change her mind. Story 12. An old buddy of mine got a new girlfriend, Tia, and he was so excited about it. He wasn't the type to really have a girlfriend, so when a girl was interested in him, he got attached super easily. He was definitely codependent, which wasn't healthy, but what he got he certainly didn't deserve. He wouldn't tell us much about her, only that she was a bombshell and that he was crazy about her. When the rest of us met her, something just didn't feel right. She was younger, dressed overly scantily, and was very flirty with everyone. As time went on, we watched him buy her everything and provide for her and her autistic son, while she did sweet screw all. He'd take her on trips, and at one point even paid for breast implants because she wasn't as perky as she used to be. Needless to say, she didn't do much research and went for the discount boob job. I was always cautious around her because something seemed off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt like she was using him and kept my distance. We tried to casually bring it up to our buddy, but he would get super defensive because he was so deeply obsessed with her. Fast forward, we're all at a big party and my then girlfriend was out of the country. I saw an old friend I hadn't seen in about a year, and she was elated to see me. There were 1 or 2 photos of us together, laughing and drinking. When my girlfriend got home, Tia told her that I was all over my friend and insisted we must have hooked up. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Although my girlfriend knew it wasn't true, Tia kept pressing the matter and showing her the photos, leaving that little shred of doubt in the back of her mind. I absolutely hated her for that lie. Anyway, they end up getting married. About 6 months in, when everything seemed perfect, he gets a call from her saying, "I'm leaving you." Bye. He rushes home to find the apartment completely cleared out. She's gone, leaving basically nothing besides his clothes and a few pieces of furniture. His credit cards are maxed out, the bank accounts are drained, and she won't pick up her phone. A few days later, her phone is disconnected. She has just vanished. He's in complete shock and obviously calls the police. They can't do much, as he can't prove she stole anything without taking her to court. After months of investigation, he finds out she was having an affair with another man, falsely told him my buddy was abusing her, he wasn't, and had a white knight help her move everything as soon as he left for work. The thing we eventually found out was that she did the exact same thing with my buddy. He had helped her quickly move out of another guy's place who was abusing her. He also discovered she had done this 3 or 4 times before, and he even tracked down some of these guys. All of their stories were almost identical. It was sickening. He never got anything back. She got off. But thankfully, he was able to rebuild himself. He's now engaged to a woman who seems much more normal and lives overseas with him. A few years later, Tia popped up on Facebook. I couldn't resist messaging her a picture where her terribly fake chest was almost completely exposed in a tiny bikini, and I wrote, "Every day when you look in the mirror, I want you to think of this message and how disgusting you are as a person. Just as sad as those tits that look like grapefruit stuffed into old tube socks stapled to your chest." She probably dismissed it, but I truly hope one day she has a moment of self-reflection and realizes her chest is more like an old, worn-out set of speed bags dangling from a string. F you, Tia. Story 13. He was 37 and she was 22. He had been pursuing her since she was 18. He confessed his love for her the moment she turned 18 and would constantly blame her for when he started smoking or drinking too much. I was pretty concerned. Once they finally started dating, he wouldn't look at or talk to any of us when she was around. He focused entirely on her, and if we tried to engage him, he got testy. He would even get angry at her for spending time with me. Because I'm a bisexual woman, he was convinced she was going to leave him for me, despite her being straight. That said, he did make sure to tell her that I had a nice figure and was very pretty. He was off. They broke up, thank God. Story 14. I hate about half of my friends' significant others, so this is perfect. One of my friend's girlfriends used to hit on me constantly through Instagram and Snapchat. She ended up cheating on my friend 3 or more times. They broke up, dated other people, and then left those people to get back together. Shortly after they reunited, my friend's dad passed away unexpectedly. Just weeks later, her girlfriend broke up with her on the actual day of her dad's funeral. Who does that? Another friend was in a long-distance relationship where their girlfriend would force them to drop anything they were doing to Skype with her. If they didn't, she would throw massive tantrums. When they finally broke up, The girlfriend threatened to harm herself and sent graphic photos of her to my friend. It's been 6 or 7 years and about 4 girlfriends later, and she still messages them, claiming they're the love of her life. The most recent one, my friend has been with this guy for 4 years. I've always been kind of neutral about him. We don't have many shared interests, and his personality is very mild, I guess, but I've always tolerated him. About a year ago, I found out he had created an OkCupid and a Tinder account and was talking to girls his girlfriend had been friends with in the past. I ended up being the one to show her the screenshots. She was understandably very upset and called him. He acted completely blasé, like he had just forgotten to pick up milk at the store instead of literally trying to cheat with 2 separate people. His excuses were, I was lonely and I just wanted to make friends. But I don't buy it for a second. There are plenty of non-dating apps for that. They ended up breaking up shortly after, but he supposedly got kicked out of his house by his grandparents, which I think was either exaggerated or complete BS. Rachel, being the angel she is, offered him her place. They now live in a new apartment together. I'm happy my friend is happy, but I do not trust her boyfriend. I think he's a stupid man-child. Story 15. Well, she had a ton of warning signs, but the biggest one to me happened. Shortly before they broke up, my buddy bought a dog, a beautiful Shiba Inu. This is a family that has always allowed their dogs on the couch. They just let them hop up whenever they wanted. We were hanging out in the basement of my buddy's place, and the dog jumps onto the couch to sit next to its owner. His girlfriend immediately shoves it off and glares, saying, "Dogs aren't allowed on the furniture." My friend says nothing, so I speak up. "She's not your dog, and this isn't your house." I pick the dog up and plunk it back onto the couch next to me. She glares at me, about to retort, but I cut her off and reaffirm that it's not her house. She doesn't own the dog, and every dog this family has ever owned has been allowed on the couch. She acted like she could make the rules in someone else's house, rules even my friend, who still lived with his parents, wasn't allowed to make. I've never encountered a woman so young, only 20, and so obsessed with control. Story 16. The number of animals she had. I could understand it if she were a farmer or running a fully stocked zoo with trained staff, but she was a girl in her mid-20s, living in a small 2-bedroom house. She had about 12 dogs, a bunch of cats, a couple of hairless rats, snakes, hamsters, and fish. Her house stank badly because she couldn't keep up with all the animals. All of her furniture was filthy, and something seemed to defecate in her bed almost daily. She was also known for stealing other people's pets if she felt they weren't taking proper care of them. There was almost always something dying in her house. She was in a constant state of mourning for one animal or another. Animals just aren't meant to live bunched up together like that in someone's home. My friend later dumped her when he found out she was cheating on him. She got pregnant and never really stopped drinking or using drugs while expecting. The child was born 3 months premature with significant health problems. That was almost a year ago, and the baby is still in the hospital today. Story 17. My best and closest friend is dating a not-so-great girl. Thankfully, I have Reddit to vent about her since none of my other friends have put as much thought into it as I have. She's polite to a fault and means well, so people don't notice. I don't even know where to start. The first summer I met her, she was pretty cool. I actually felt bad for her at the time. Now she's moved from the opposite coast, and her parents practically forced my buddy to let her move in, just after they had a big fight because she was going through his phone. She doesn't like that a large number of our childhood friends are very attractive girls and that he talks to them. She's so jealous that he'd rather lie than argue about going to dinner with one of our closest and oldest friends. He's a friendly guy and randomly calls everyone just like his mom to catch up. What's wrong with that? The biggest issue I have with her is how possessive she is because of her ridiculous insecurity. My theory is that she regrets moving out here for him and is overcompensating to make herself feel better. According to her, every one of our childhood friends is closer to her than to us. She sticks her nose up at everything we do, then talks about how trashy some of our friends are. The very same people she's close with. She really needs to get over herself. She's just not fun, and it sucks. Before she moved in, we would go to the bar down the street, half a mile at most, every Friday. It didn't have to be every week or even Fridays. Now he stays home. We don't even have fun drinking at his own place anymore, all because he doesn't want to get in a fight with her about I don't even know what. Heaven forbid he go have some fun with the guys. Now, he's talking about moving away and getting married, and the grounds for the marriage seem to be simply that they've been together for so long. That's it. Nothing else. That's an awful reason. Whatever. She sucks. Their relationship sucks, and I want my best friend back. Maybe this is why I'm still single, but relationships shouldn't be a chore. They shouldn't change you. They should improve what already makes you you. Story 18. About 4.5 years ago, my best friend and her boyfriend invited me and my now SO to dinner at a house they were house sitting. Everything was fine. The alcohol was flowing, and I was getting brave enough to flirt a little with my love interest. Good times. I went to the bathroom for 2 minutes, and when I came back, my SO was sitting stunned in a chair with a bloodied face and a ripped shirt. My best friend's boyfriend was beyond wasted and got angry at my SO for telling him he didn't have to put the dogs in the kennel because they were fine and not bothering anyone. My SO is the nicest person on the planet, so it wasn't said in a bad way, but he didn't like someone telling him what to do, so he started punching the hell out of my SO. We left immediately. My best friend told her boyfriend that if something like that ever happened again, she would leave him. He apologized to my SO and now avoids us as much as possible because he's ashamed. About 8 months later, my SO and I started dating, and my best friend married that a-hole 2 years after the incident. Story 19. My best friend of about 10 years at the time, still my best friend now, and I lived in the same college town, 1,000 miles from home. Moving so far from our families really solidified our friendship. We are both very close to our families, and being away was hard, so we relied on each other a lot. Let's call him Ben. Ben had fought for and lost a long-term relationship. He had been planning to propose in the summer, but she ended things, not well, in July. Come December, on opening night for Star Wars Episode 7, Myself and All, his roommates and friends assumed he was still grieving. I went over to his apartment early, as his roommate and I had promised to dress up in costume for the premiere. Someone had told me he'd gone to pick someone up from the airport. 20 minutes before we were set to leave, he showed up with a girl from the last town he had lived in before moving, someone he'd never mentioned, and she was all over him. It was really strange, having one of his roommates whisper to the rest of us what was going on. Apparently, she had moved to Denton, Texas, right after he moved away, and they had been commenting on posts by mutual Facebook friends, noticed each other being clever, and had been talking online for weeks. She had family in our area who she planned to visit at Christmas anyway, so she flew up that day to join us for the movie and meet him in real life. I didn't like the surprise, mostly because if he really had confidence in this idea, he wouldn't have kept it from me. That feeling got worse when I realized she had spent her entire trip at his apartment and hadn't visited her family at all. She even fought with him when he mentioned a piece of his past that hadn't come up before, playing the victim and saying all this crud about being sick of lying people in her life. Like, y'all just met. He's not just going to hand you a thumb drive with all his baggage. Chill out. They started a long-distance relationship, and he spent thousands of dollars over the course of a few months flying back and forth to Texas, sending her flowers and gifts, and even helping pay to fix her car. She lost her mind roughly every 2 months, breaking up with him and making him feel awful, only to guilt him into taking her back, usually within 3 days. Ben is a good guy, doesn't drink or smoke, isn't being intimate until marriage. The whole neighborly good guy package. Every time she broke things off, she would get high, drunk, strung out, and hook up with her ex-husband. She was 23 at the time, going through her second divorce. I say ex because legally they were still married. The divorce had literally just started, and they didn't file until after she flew here to meet Ben. After she dumped him the second time, Ben and I went to see Deadpool to cheer him up. Of course, they got back together after we left the theater. 2 days later, she lost it because he went to see Deadpool. It's so pornographic and tacky, she told him, calling him the scum of the earth for wanting to see a movie like that. That was where he finally drew the line. Nobody messes with our Marvel fandom. He came over to my place for more privacy than his 5 roommates could provide, waiting for her to call and apologize. I made him say to her in front of me, while I made him comfort food, I'm not heartless, that he wasn't going to keep doing this and that their relationship was really over. We had pizza and watched cartoons until he felt well enough to drive home. She continued to be a nuisance for a few months, but eventually stopped bothering him. About a month after the ordeal, she even brought her new boyfriend to visit and tried to dangle him in front of Ben, attempting to use Ben to cheat on the poor guy. Ben liked him and warned him what had happened, recommending that he not be too trusting of her. Story 20. He gets mad at her for basically living her life without him. A couple of years ago, when we went out for New Year's, she got drunk and he just got furious. He texts me to make sure she is handling her alcohol and to keep an eye on her, and it's always in a controlling way. She's also 20 years old and he's 18. They basically don't live separate lives. It's quite pathetic. He almost forbade her from going on a football trip with her team last year because she had to share a bed with another girl. She is straight, by the way, but she made one comment about having a girl crush on a celebrity, and he flipped, saying he doesn't want a relationship with a bi girl he cannot trust. There was also a time he got furious because a guy's name in her phone had 2 emojis next to it and his didn't. Yes, I know. My friend and this guy kissed once years ago and are barely friends, but these emojis made her boyfriend lose it. There's a lot more than that, but he is the most insecure and controlling guy ever, and somehow they've been together for nearly 5 years. Story 21. None of her friends liked him. We all thought he was an idiot and socially awkward. He had no friends beyond his immediate family, and they were way too close. The few times he opened his mouth, he proved we were right, usually saying something stupid, rude, or offensive. He's also extraordinarily unattractive. There were reasons she married him, which I always assumed stemmed from deep-seated insecurities from growing up. Her immediate family didn't hold back, but I think her friends tried to be supportive, assuming she saw something we didn't. They fought terribly before marriage, breaking up several times, once even after the wedding was already booked, costing her parents tens of thousands of dollars in deposits. Anyone outside the situation would immediately see this as a red flag. They did finally marry, unfortunately. Then she got sick. Very, very sick. His reaction to her illness was mostly self-pity. 99% self-pity that her illness was happening to him. She finally realized she shouldn't waste a minute of the time she had left with this a-hole and kicked him out. For the last 5 years, she's been fighting a war on 2 fronts, trying to divorce a narcissistic, angry Neanderthal on one side and battling stage 4 aggressive, incurable cancer on the other. When she first told her family and friends she was divorcing him, not a single person expressed surprise or regret. The most common answer was, about frigging time. Story 22. I introduced my best friend to his now ex-wife. She was actually the sister of a mutual friend we both knew, but he hadn't met her yet. They went on a couple of dates, and things didn't seem right from the start. She would talk about her aspirations and how she wanted to do a lot of things but couldn't for some reason. It quickly became clear. If she tried something once and wasn't immediately good at it, she gave up completely. She went to community college for a semester, failed a single test, and dropped out. She went to beauty school, messed up dyeing hair once, and quit. She got a job as a secretary, accidentally routed a call to the wrong person on her first day, and quit. I told my best friend that she wasn't someone he should consider for a long-term relationship. But after I got engaged, she pressured him into getting engaged too. After they got engaged, she quit her job and refused to look for another, expecting him to take care of her. They were married 6 years before divorcing because he couldn't handle her constantly giving up on everything. He was trying to advance in a highly competitive field, going through over 50 interviews for the job he wanted. And every time she would mentally abuse him, telling him he was a failure and to give up. When he finally landed the job, she acted like she had encouraged him all along and claimed he was nothing without her. About a year later, he left her. That was the happiest day of his life. Story 23. I've been best friends with this guy for 20 years. I even moved in with him and his girlfriend, who he'd been dating for a couple of years. I never thought she was all that great, but he seemed happy. So I stayed quiet and let him live his life. One Friday night, before a weekend trip we'd all planned months in advance, she invited a group of us over, about 9 people in total. Some couples, some single. Most of us had been friends for a long time, college roommates, etc. The place wasn't huge, but it had enough room. The guys decided to go out for pizza and beer, as guys do. One bought the beer, one bought the pizza, and I bought food for breakfast the next morning. We didn't let the host pay for any of it because he was hosting. We got home, ate the pizza, had some beers, played Madden, told jokes, and had fun. At 8 p.m., she said we needed to keep it quiet. At 9, she repeated it and told my buddy to put away the whiskey he brought because she didn't want us drinking anymore. At 10, she said she was going to bed, and we all needed to go to bed too so we wouldn't wake her up or sleep in. Shortly after, she added that we weren't allowed to use the fan or AC in the guest room, August in New England, because it wasn't that hot, and something about her electric bill. The next morning, she told us nobody was allowed to shower before leaving the house because it would be too much extra laundry. On top of that, we all only got half a mug of coffee because she wouldn't let us open another can of her coffee. I don't mind sharing if there's not much and we all need to make do. I actually love sharing. But when you have an extra can and refuse to give it up, being that selfish, yeah, that's just being a selfish twat. Around 11 a.m., we We were all dying to leave her place and escape these ridiculous rules. Of course, she was still showering and getting ready. Meanwhile, a friend and I fired up Madden for a rematch from the night before, with plenty of trash talk. I scored a touchdown, and in not-so-inside voice, told my friend to S my D. At that moment, she stormed out of her room and yelled at me, calling me a disrespectful a-hole who was lucky she even invited me, and demanded that I apologize, or she wouldn't leave. I didn't apologize. She went back to her room and cried. Eventually, some of the other girls calmed her down and convinced her to go on the trip. Everyone was super mad at her for ruining the vibe, and I felt bad for everyone else. It was a terrible weekend. F you, Hillary. You are a terrible person with a huge forehead. Story 24. We were playing board games at a friend's house when they arrived a little late, coming straight from a drive-thru. Once she finished her meal, she crumpled up the wrapper and just dropped it on the floor beside her. She didn't bother to walk literally 5 steps to the garbage, just left it there, and continued the conversation as if nothing had happened. That level of arrogance and general disrespect for others and their surroundings became more and more obvious over time. It was a small thing, but I noticed it early. Honestly, it kind of blew my mind because she was coming across as a pretty intelligent person. Story 25. Oh, where to begin? Let's just say she was super nice to everyone, except him. I heard their fights through the wall. Her erratic behavior pointed to drugs, and eventually meth was confirmed. Whenever she was around, he was guarded in what he said. Our friendship dynamic changed the second she reappeared each time. He was a normal guy, but when she was around, his life became a constant tightrope walk, trying not to piss her off. He was always depressed, always saying he loved her. Strangely, he was happy when she was gone. We all saw the manipulation. Over time, it wrecked his mental stability. I strongly suspect he started doing hard drugs with her again just to keep her happy. I heard her tell him to off himself more than once. About a year ago, she won, and we all lost him. Story 26. My best friend started dating this guy who seemed super chill and funny. He and I didn't really talk much, but we could hang out when we were all together. He's also a very close friend of my girlfriend. My best friend and I would often grab each other's faces or smack each other's buns because we're girls, I don't know. We did it all the time. One day, while my friend, this guy, and I were waiting for my girlfriend, I went to pinch her cheek. Out of nowhere, he grabbed my hand and whispered, "If you touch her, I will break all your fingers." Completely out of the blue. He genuinely believed that because I'm a lesbian, I was trying to sabotage his relationship so I could get with her. She ended up dating him for a few years, and I later found out he was physically abusing her on a daily basis. And it all started the day he grabbed my hand. She's with a new, amazing guy now, engaged and expecting their first child. I still can't help but feel terrible, thinking that my interaction somehow set off the chain of events she had to endure with that idiot. Story 27. My friend and I were living together at the time, and his SO was from another state, so she'd visit maybe once or twice a year. He was on his way out of the military, so that arrangement worked for them. Whenever she came over, he became a completely different person. Normally, he was witty, always ready to trade barbs with me or our other roommate, happy to talk about games or watch silly movies. But when she was around, he was just no one, literally no one. He completely lost his personality around us. They'd spend all day together, which I understood since they spent so much time apart. But when they finally came out of their room and we grilled food or had dinner, all that came through were her opinions and thoughts. Our friend was just missing. As soon as she left, everything went back to normal. There wasn't much I could do to discourage him. She was clearly the bee's knees to him in every way. They live together now, have a daughter, and we talk occasionally over Google Hangouts for our bi-weekly RPG, but he barely responds to Facebook posts or interacts with us much anymore. I guess that's just the distance, but it's still kind of sad. Story 28. Not a friend, but my brother's girlfriend. There were a number of things that made me strongly opposed to their relationship. I gave her more chances than most of my family, mainly because she was the younger sister of a friend I'd known in high school, and I knew she came from a really messed up home life. 1. She wore white to my sister's wedding, after crying about my sister flipping out over the white dress she'd bought. The only thing she did to try to make it better was wear a cropped sweater jacket over the dress during the ceremony. I gave her a lot of leeway here because of her background. Maybe she honestly didn't know any better. 2. She started showering, brushing her teeth, and generally getting ready at our house. My mom put her foot down. They were seniors in high school and acting like they lived together, like they owned the place. Even though they'd only been dating about a month, showering in particular was a step too far. She still gets ready here, but at least now she doesn't shower here when someone is home. 3. She arrives at our home and immediately changes out of one of the 2 outfits she brought and into my brother's clothes. Pants, shirts, sweaters, whatever, for no reason at all. The worst part is that she'll wear them for a week, then bring them back and dump them in the laundry, effectively making my mom do an extra person's worth of laundry. That's just straight up disrespectful. 4. She started pointing out every couple she saw in media and saying to my brother, "Oh, that's us," even if the couple she's referencing is abusive or clearly dysfunctional. 5. She eats dinner with my family almost every day, and if we go out to eat, she orders an expensive dish, often with a side, and then barely eats any of it. Frequently, she'll throw away the main dish and only eat the side. 6. She straddled my brother from behind and gave him a disgustingly inappropriate back massage under his shirt while on the living room floor with both my sister and me in the room. 7. She lies about the most ridiculous things, even when we know they're not true. For example, one day she claimed she only ate one piece of her MOD pizza because she's allergic to tomatoes. A. She has eaten there with us before and happily finished her food. B. She goes with us for pizza all the time. C. She constantly talks about how her favorite home meal is cheese ravioli with tomato-based sauce. If she didn't want pizza, she shouldn't have ordered it. For context, we chose Maudie's despite her openly asking to get more expensive food because we wanted pizza. We hadn't invited her to eat with us, and my brother never asks if my mom is okay accommodating her. She expects us to plan our meals entirely around her. There were several other little things that wore on me over time, but the one I absolutely could not ignore was that she was mean to my dog when I got him as a puppy, and she even dragged my brother into being mean to him as well. I have a mini schnauzer, and he's fantastically behaved. Always has been, but he was still a puppy at the time. First, she couldn't stop complaining that she wanted a boy instead of a girl dog. Who cares? He's my dog, not hers. Then she constantly whined about him chewing her things. He was teething and chews everyone's stuff. If she picked it up, it wouldn't have been a problem. At one point, she had my brother threaten to kill my pup via text because he chewed her glasses. I immediately threatened him back if he ever said anything like that about my dog again. My dog had gotten into her purse 3 times that day alone. He'd been able to jump on the couch for roughly a month, and I had repeatedly told her to move her stuff because he kept getting into it while I went upstairs. Of course, he got her glasses out of her purse. The kicker? He'd already chewed my mom's and my glasses far worse than hers. She complained that she wouldn't be able to drive, despite never actually driving anywhere herself, relying on my brother instead. But eventually, she dropped it. Later on, she started complaining that my 1-year-old pup was biting her when he played. That was weird because he doesn't bite anyone else. Maybe it had something to do with the way she cooed the word no around him when I was present and screamed at him when I wasn't. Not only was he confused, he had no idea what she was upset about because she was so inconsistent. I suggested she try yelping when he bites, immediately stand up and walk away. I'd asked her to do this several times over the past year. She dismissed it as stupid. I even told her to Google it. Any puppy training guide will tell you the same thing. We politely argued about it, but she later took to Twitter to passive-aggressively complain, not knowing I'd see, that your dog shouldn't be biting anyone, no matter how I react or treat him. It took all my energy not to reply with a long message explaining that if she's going to be around a puppy in training, she should respect the owner's wishes. My dog doesn't bite just anyone. He only play bites her. I brought it up to my brother, and he got defensive. I ended up screaming at him that I didn't care what her home life was like. She couldn't freeload at our house and interfere with my dog's training. If they weren't going to respect my rules, she wasn't welcome around him. At the time, my dog could have suffered consequences because she was too self-absorbed to behave like a grown adult. She was 19. I was 22. My brother stopped bringing her around for a few months. When she started coming by again, for the first few weeks, she didn't even acknowledge my dog. Surprise? My dog stopped play biting her entirely. Now she's constantly cooing over my dog, kissing him and calling him her good boy. My dog loves everyone, so of course he's nice to her, but he's definitely not nearly as affectionate as he used to be, perhaps having picked up on my immediate anger whenever she's in the room. One day, I'm going to snap because it's disgusting. I like to phrase it as her and my brother playing house with my dog, acting like they trained and raised him, when in reality I've done at least 90% of the work. Vet bills, feeding, daily walks, outings, and even grooming. I hate that they take him on walks when I'm not home, and sometimes my brother's girlfriend looks personally offended when I take credit for his care and upbringing. She gets this dark, almost murderous look when I take him out. so I make sure to do it as soon as they sit down to cuddle and call him over. They seem to try to compete even if I vocally said I'm taking him on a walk, as though they think he'll choose them over me. He comes to check in with me regularly, even when spending time with them. I can't wait to be financially independent so I can move out and take my dog away from her for good. Story 29. Oh boy, this one guy. My high school best friend had a habit of dating total scrubs, but this one, Josh, was particularly awful. He was 20. He was the fedora-wearing type. Side note, he had hair on the sides of his head but was completely bald on top, Squidward style. Not his fault, but it definitely added to his character. This story is easiest told in list format. We were sitting in my best friend's living room when she and Josh got into a fight in front of both me and her mother, which resulted in him throwing a pen at her face. She ran to her room crying, and we were flabbergasted. He insulted and picked apart pretty much everything I was into in typical neckbeard fashion. He followed my best friend and me to my house on his bike one day because he didn't trust her. He stole her undies, wore it, and never returned it. After one of their breakups, she had to go over to his aunt's house, where he lived, while he was at work at Walmart to recover all of her stolen clothings. It was a huge armful. Hilarious in retrospect, but creepy as hell at the time. There were lots of little things, constantly putting her down, throwing things, criticizing her friends, especially me, and forbidding her from doing anything without him. On several occasions, he refused to leave Bestie's house when her mother told him to go, and he became super stalky after each breakup. Fun side note, he was incapable of using the toilet with his clothes on, so he would completely strip in Bestie's room, dash across the hallway, and do his business. The toilet was often broken, and only Bestie could flush it, so she would go in afterward and flush for him. I just used the other bathroom like a sane person. Anyway, this is already long-winded, and I'm sure there's a lot I don't remember. You're a piece of crap, Josh. Wherever you are. Story 30. My sister's now second ex-husband. First time we met was when my wife and I went out to dinner with them. They had just started dating, and this was the meet my family stage of their relationship. He ordered first, which isn't proper, and then chastised her for choosing something over the limit they had discussed. She changed her order, literally. Just $1 less on the menu. My mouth dropped. I was shocked because my sister is in her 50s, a registered nurse who makes good money, divorced for several years, and an established independent woman. My wife and I ordered whatever we wanted, and he made a big deal about picking up the check. I insisted on leaving the tip in cash to help the server. We met again a few weeks later and agreed I would pick up the tab, sort of an every other meal thing. He ordered a T-bone, several drinks, and a dessert to go, but didn't offer to cover the tip. I had about $20 in cash and asked him to throw in $20 if he had it. He sighed and made a production out of it. After that, our schedules never seemed to line up for dinner. Thankfully, the marriage only lasted a few years. Story 31. So many reasons why Rob is frustrating. 1. When our friend said he worked at Boeing, let's call him Rob, he said, "Are you a mechanic? You look like a mechanic." That friend is a vice president. 2. My dog loves everyone and will let kids pull his ears and roll all over him. I've only ever seen him hurt flies. Rob went to pet him, and my dog snapped at his hand. In 8 years, I've never seen him snap at another human. 3. Rob called me asking to go kayaking off our dock. We lived on a lake at the time, and mentioned he'd bring stuff to grill. I said sure. Once he and his friend got there, it became clear that going kayaking meant he and his friend using our kayaks, not us. It got better when he brought a cooler to the grill and took out 2 steaks and nothing else. He didn't intend to share a meal, but still asked us for plates, silverware, seasoning, beer, and instructions on how to cook the steak. When I came out to help instead of my fiance, he said, "It's cool. Grilling is a man's business." He burnt the steak. 4. I invited a friend and Rob to dinner. My fiance and the friend were talking about technology protocols and their management. Rob looked at me and sincerely mansplained, "Have you been able to follow any of what we're talking about? It must be tough for you since we're so accomplished." Not as hard as keeping a straight face. 5. I was home alone one Friday night when he called saying he was in the area and asked if he could drop by. I said sure, and the doorbell immediately rang. Apparently, he had parked sketchily up on the road, walked down my super long driveway, crossed our dark porch, and then called me. It turned out he was taking his neighbor, a hot girl in booty shorts, out for a spin in his friend's sports car. They had apparently outrun the cops and wanted to hide for a few minutes while they passed. While he was hiding on my porch telling me this story, he seemed to forget the car was bright red and parked on the side of the road. Frigging Rob. the sexist psychopath. Story 32. My cousin called me one day to ask me to be her bridesmaid, which was the first I'd heard of her being engaged. I assumed it was her boyfriend, but apparently she had dumped him, found a new guy, and got engaged after just 30 days. I was wary about it, but I told her I'd be happy to be her bridesmaid. Well, he came from a privileged background, had never worked a day in his life, and had zero motivation to do so. That immediately set off alarm bells for me. After they got married, she started making good money as a loan officer. Meanwhile, he bounced from job to job, car salesman, and other random gigs. While she was struggling to make ends meet with the new house and the baby, he was spending money on a 1,000-channel subscription, $90 tap-out t-shirts, $280 Rock and Republic jeans, AIO Lexus, and who knows what else. One day during my long weekend visit to her place, she lived in Vegas, we were in San Diego, he showed her his birthday gift from her, 3 tap-out t-shirts and 2 pairs of Rock and Republic jeans, all things he actually wore. She had only promised him 1 pair of those jeans and no shirts. Months later, she finally made him move out and get his own apartment so he could feel the financial strain she had been living with. He was supposed to stay there for 1 month, but he didn't last. He came home while she was at work, packed all his stuff, and drove to Chicago to live with his parents. And he was in his mid-30s. She couldn't even get child support because his cousin employed him under the table as a bartender. They're divorced now. I had predicted all of this, and she called me crying, begging me not to say I told you so I didn't. She's far more successful without him. He's still living with his parents while she just bought her second house in San Diego, where her parents now live. She even helps pay their bills, and still no child support. Story 33. She has about 200 to 300 pairs of shoes, says she hates her parents because they were oppressive and want her to be home after a few days. She's around 22, I think. Yet she lets her dad buy her everything and likes to be called princess. She's also slow, just not very bright. I don't know what he sees in her, but they've been together a long time. I won't judge too harshly as she doesn't treat him poorly, isn't rude, and doesn't have any crazy issues. She's just very unique, I guess. Story 34. He completely lost it when he found out she was still friends with the first guy she ever slept with. I use the word friends loosely. At this point, they just have the same friend group but rarely spend time together or talk. They're just acquaintances who happen to lose their V cards to each other. Every time our friend group got together, he would get upset with her for being in the same room as this guy. He started coming over more and more just to stare at everyone, even when the guy wasn't there. After about a year of dating, he initiated a break, then asked to resume their relationship about 3 months later. Someone told her that he had used their break to sleep with as many people as possible to catch up to her body count. She broke up with him, but they got back together not long after. Just recently, we went out to a bar, and my friend saw someone she knew from school. They exchanged a wave and a simple, "Hey." As this guy walked away, her boyfriend literally spit on him because he had the audacity to acknowledge her. She plays it off as him being the most jealous person she's ever known. I call that immature and toxic. Story 35. I'm going to give some perspective from the inside of one of these toxic relationships in the hope that it might save someone from going through what I did. And for the record, I'm a guy. Men can be victims in abusive relationships too. Here are some of the easiest warning signs to spot. These apply to all relationships, regardless of gender or sexual orientation. 1. Does your friend constantly have to explain or apologize for their partner's behavior? 2. Do they spend less and less time with you and other friends because their partner demanded it or simply doesn't like you or anyone else in their life? If the friends are genuinely terrible, that's another issue. But I'm assuming you're decent people. 3. Does your friend seem fine when they're with you, but become noticeably nervous, withdrawn, or depressed when their partner is around? 4. When they talk about their partner in glowing terms, do they seem glassy-eyed, like they're trying to convince themselves? Does it sound rehearsed or coached? Alternatively, have they ever casually mentioned a strange behavior or demand when alone with you? That can be them quietly voicing concern. 5. Has your friend's partner ever subtly flirted with you or blatantly hit on you or someone you know while still dating your friend? 6. Do you catch the partner in repeated lies, both big and small? 7. When you're around both of them, does your friend seem overly attentive, like the partner is in charge and your friend is a nervous servant? 8. Watch their eyes. Do they look down a lot or only look at their partner when they're together? 9. Does the partner denigrate, bully, or talk down to or about your friend in front of others? I could go on, but if the answer is yes to any of these, Your friend might be in an abusive relationship. My story. My ex-wife was the kind of person with a huge and completely irrational insecurity about other women. It didn't matter their age or attractiveness. Every woman was a threat to her in some way. Even the women in my own family were a threat. They're judging me. She would keep me up at night for hours interrogating me, asking whether I thought this or that woman was attractive. Sometimes it was someone real. Sometimes just a woman on TV. If I wanted any sleep, I had to get good at convincing her that I thought every other woman on the planet was a cave troll. A perfect example. I once had lunch with a female friend at work. She was a sweet, older woman I'd become friends with, old enough to be my mom and with her own family. I thought of her as my work mom. We mostly talked about work stuff. That night, I mentioned to my ex that I'd had a nice lunch break with a lady from work. My ex knew who she was. She completely lost it. Apparently, this was the most bitter betrayal imaginable. Lunch apparently equaled banging over a table. After 3 hours, her angry crying the entire time, I decided it was easier to just stop hanging out with my work friend. The next day, I told her. She didn't understand, but she agreed. I'll never forget the look of confusion, pity, and disappointment on her face. All I can say at this point to explain myself is that I was young and stupid, and I had never encountered someone so manipulative. She didn't just show up acting crazy. She was smart, middle class, not some obvious train wreck, and could easily pass as normal. It took time to see how skewed her thinking really was. By the time I figured it out, she had me pretty well mapped out and knew exactly how to push my buttons, using intimacy or crying and arguing me into submission. She was extremely good at manipulation. It felt like she'd taken a class on how to destroy an insecure guy's confidence and grind him down to dust. If you Google Chinese water torture, you'll have some idea of what I went through. Constant, relentless questioning and harassment until I eventually gave in just to make it stop. Eventually, I became the broken shell she wanted. It got so bad that I started looking at the ground whenever other women were around, or even when they were on TV, just to avoid triggering another interrogation. During the relationship, I slowly pulled away from my friends and family. Part of it was her not wanting me around people she felt judged or threatened by. The other part was me subconsciously hating having to lie for her or constantly explain and defend her behavior. It felt easier to isolate myself than to face everyone else. Over time, I became cut off from everyone who cared about me. The constant mental abuse, isolation, and harassment pushed me to the edge. For the last year or so, I was on the verge of ending it all. I barely spoke at all. Here's the fun part. After several years of this, after she'd thoroughly broken my will and isolated me, I guess I wasn't fun to play with anymore. So, predictably, she cheated on me several times before finally leaving for good. I didn't confirm it until after we were done, but she later admitted she'd slept with at least 3 other guys while we were either dating or married. Honestly, she did me a huge favor by leaving. She was like a cat that had lost interest in a dead mouse and wandered off to find new toys. She went to a party with her brother, hooked up with some guy, and never came home. I almost forgot. She left me with a permanent reminder of our time together. She gave me herpes. About a month into the relationship, I had my first outbreak. I got tested, and sure enough, it was the big H. When I confronted her, she broke down crying and claimed she'd been assayed on a date a few months before we met and that the guy had infected her. I suggested we go to the police and have him arrested. She gave me some vague, half-hearted excuse to drop it, and because I was already conditioned to do what she wanted, I did. After the divorce, she finally admitted she'd made the entire essay story up and had known she was carrying the disease the whole time. Lying about essay makes you human trash in my book. Knowingly being intimate without disclosing that you're carrying an incurable STD is pretty messed up too. She figured I wouldn't get it because I always wore condoms. She was wrong. I ended up with it at the base of my shaft after about half an hour of her riding me like she was trying to start a fire one night. She gave me just enough friction burn for the virus to get into my skin. I'm really glad I didn't go down on her that night. That lovely, incurable bastard of a disease added to the feeling of being trapped from the very beginning of the relationship. I believed that even if I left, no woman would want to be with me once I was infected. Apparently, she didn't share those concerns since the guys she cheated with had no idea she was carrying herpes. After she left, I collapsed into a disgusting, sappy, drunken mess for about 2 weeks. My boss was incredibly patient and drove me to and from work because I was basically drunk around the clock. I was working as a chef in a catering kitchen, but I was too screwed up to be relied on. So they stuck me on dish duty until I sobered up. After 2 weeks of being soaked in cheap vodka, I woke up one morning and realized I was better off without her. I snapped out of the stupor I'd been in and spent the next year rediscovering who I actually was and regretting who she'd temporarily turned me into. Almost 20 years later, I still cringe at the memory of the hollowed-out person I became for the sake of her ego and narcissism, and all the crap I did for her. She moved on almost immediately, like the day she left, and did the same thing to another guy, breaking him down too. I have no idea what she's doing now, and I sincerely hope I never find out. If someone you know is going through something like this, you may not be able to reason with them. Pushing too hard can drive them away. Be patient. You can ask gentle, leading questions to get them thinking, but tread carefully. If the partner catches on, they'll likely force your friend to cut ties with you. The good news is that these relationships almost always implode eventually, and when they do, your friend will need support, someone to help them pick up the pieces and remind them of who they were before the toxic relationship. If anything I've written sounds like your life, regardless of gender or orientation, please take this advice. Get out. The person you're with is not with you because they love you. They're with you because they can control you. That's it. They have freedom. You do not. Get out now. It will not get better. They will not treat you better. They will not suddenly trust you. They will never truly love you. A breakup may be disruptive and painful, but you will survive it. And you will be better, stronger, and smarter for having survived. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.